Is
Mm,
this something that it doesn't say that you're joined. Let's see. Well, it just says an A, so I guess yes.
yes, ma'am. Because I didn't. I never left. I just switched from phone to computer simultaneously.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah. For the first thing, can we just have you introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Tanya Knight. I'm a real estate broker of Brownstone Realty.
How long have you been in the market?
Um, I've been in real estate now going on probably about 19 years.
Mm. What would you say are one of the most important things to know when trying to just be successful in real estate?
Um, um, the one thing that I can kind of go from where and why I've gotten into real estate, I became a homeowner at the age of 19. Um, and I was very displeased in my experience with the agent that I was working with. And out of curiosity, I decided to learn real estate, not necessarily become a realtor or someone who is selling properties, but to get a better understanding because I knew that my first home would not be my only home. And in educating myself, I realized how many other people who could be possibly doing the same thing could be disenfranchised or not have an agent go about the process the correct way. The way my agent went about the home purchase process definitely looking back would have deterred me if I was not so determined to have my own home. I was a parent and I did not like the things that were taking place in the apartment complex that I was renting from. And I just got frustrated with that and said I wanted to purchase a home. And the agent started working with me, never asked me about the type of home I was looking for, or was I qualified by a lender so I knew exactly what price point would be best to look at. She pretty much made an assessment based on things I could never ever really explain because she didn't ask me those general questions. I think she just went by what she thought I needed. And then, by hopes, if I liked it, then I would try to get a loan to see if I qualified. But in even that case, she showed me a lot of properties that did not match what I had in mind for a home. And I eventually let her go and started the process on my own and found a lot and decided to have a house built on it. But the process was definitely an eye-opening one, and I decided to get involved with making the process a little more easier for anyone else from that point on, because I realized that if I was not that determined, I would have given up. I would have not even continued because I just thought there were not better options. But the reality is, my agent made an assessment based on, I guess, what she thought I could afford opposed to what I really could afford. So that's why I actually got into it. I feel like it has to be something not just based on um, the financial drive, because it's definitely more things that are entail into selling properties. You have to be patient. You have to be a people person. You're definitely going to have to be a good listener, because if you are just determined on selling a property and not listening to your client's needs and major objectives, you will turn off a buyer. A home purchase process is probably one of the biggest purchases the average person will do in their lifetime. And it is probably as scary, if not more, to do that process when it comes to comparing it to any other life challenges, whether it be getting married or having a child. So everyone is very sensitive. It doesn't take too much for an individual to be turned off. They feel like their needs are not being heard, met, or respected. So, being driven by money is definitely why a lot of people get into it and a lot of people don't stay. You definitely want to be focused on the things that will bring you longevity, which are making positive impact on another person's life. The importance of understanding that customer service comes before everything, um, because there will be deals where you have to decide whether or not you're going to make a decision that's best for your client and not necessarily best for your pocket. And in order for you to stay in something like this, I would definitely say it has to be based on the benefits of your clients over just a financial reward.
Hmm.
Yeah.
When you first decided to take the route of learning the system, how long did it take you to get your license?
Um, well, in overall, it took me about, I mean, it was less than a year. If I'm correct, off the top of my head, it's been so long ago. It was initially like 75 hours. There's a lot of continual education.
Hmm.
Um, there is definitely more learning of both sides, because in real estate, you have to understand customer service, the needs and the landscape in which you're selling properties, but you also have to be very mindful of the programs and the functionality of what helps you to narrow down your searches. So there's two very different important sides of the spectrums in sales that you have to understand, because there's a lot of ongoing education for state laws and things that you have to be aware of to protect the interest of the client, the brokerage. So there is a definite requirement of using different sides of your brain and personalities to actually function really well in this. But I definitely, for as far as getting my license, it took me, less than probably about 2 months for the hours that I initially needed to be pre-licensed. Then you have post-licensing hours that are required. It takes honestly probably about a good 3 years before you get a full swing of everything, because you're so and doing it very young for me, you so have to learn the importance of separating your own desires for someone else. You have to be aware of the need of the individual you're working with. You have to be mindful of the documents and the paperwork that come with it, because there's definitely ways that you can cause a lot of issues for your clients with any information or communication. So the whole duration of getting your license is less than maybe 3 months, but the terms of mastering the field, for most agents, I would say it takes us to realistically a year to two before you get a full swing of the balance.
So about a year or two before you're actually comfortable doing the
Correct.
job.
Correct.
Hmm.
Or you feel like you fully have an understanding of where your strengths are.
Okay. To
Some
be able
people
to
are
do the
better
job.
at selling. Some people are better at listing. Some people find that they're not great at either. They want to be on the backside of things. They want to do documentation. They want to, do the administrative side, because the the need to meet the emotional and the mental side of the client can be a little bit overwhelming. And sometimes, if you're not naturally comfortable in speaking your own truth and understanding and reading the room, you can feel like you're not getting a full niche of things. So I think within a year to two, you generally can decipher what part of real estate you find yourself most successful.
Mm. That's cool. I didn't really think about how like your personality would just affect
Have
where you
a
would end
huge
up so
yes.
much. Yeah.
Yes. Your personality and how you perceive people are a huge portion of where success comes in. Because if you're not capable of observing that, if you're working with a couple, that there's one that leads and tend to make the majority of the decisions, but they tend to overlook their spouse, and the spouse who does not ask a lot of questions walks away feeling like you didn't take time to address them. And they may have never asked you anything. But you also have to observe that even if the spouse doesn't ask questions, you have to invite, allow them to feel comfortable to ask the question. and they may feel offended, and you didn't intend to offend them. And you also have to be mindful if someone says that you offend them, that it's never about whether or not you intended to, is respecting their views. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're someone who's very sensitive, or you find yourself not necessarily comfortable to ask hard questions, it can feel very overwhelming. It also can feel like it's more of a job, where it should feel like a natural motion for you to be successful. So a lot of people have gotten into it and not understood the importance of observing others and being mindful of interjecting necessary things and helping your clients to be focused on their initial needs. They'll have you looking at a million homes because, it's like shopping for a car. Sometimes they don't know all their options, but then they veer away from what is the most important thing, which is how much they can afford and their basic needs. So if you're not strong in controlling the narrative and bringing back people in, you will actually feel overwhelmed. You'll find yourself not being able to wrap up a deal, because if they can, they will have you show them a million homes and still never make their mind up. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
you just have to be able to read body language, listen, and be capable of not just hearing, but truly listening to what has been told to you, and also never taking things personal. Because if that's not something that you're strong in, it'll be very, very, it'll never feel like it's worth it to you.
Sounds like you got to be real headstrong. It has me wondering if there's any type of schooling tied to it, like some type of psychology.
You know what? That actually is pretty smart of you to even mention that, because that is why, for me, when I recruit agents, or I find agents that are interested in joining my brokerage, one of the number one questions that I tend to ask them is, what um, what was the thing that caused you to desire to get into real estate? And if any of it has to do with, I've been told that I can, make a lot of money from this, and I just love the lifestyle, I immediately give them the reality of, all that you see really does not line up with true longevity if this is a career thing. Because if you're not aware that you're going to be dealing with people who are emotionally stressed from
Mm-hmm.
beginning to end, no matter whatever their financial price point is, whether they can truly afford it or not, because you run into different things. You have to be able to be a mediator by nature. And if that's not your strong suit, you definitely will be frustrated. I don't think that is something that you can necessarily uh, teach someone. I think it's something that you can encourage out of someone if they've already got it, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes any sense.
It does.
Because you either by nature have a personality to be a great leader, a listener, and understanding that the importance of what you're doing is more about your client at that moment than it is about you trying to get a check. Um, that's not something you can teach someone, because if you're a person who your principles are based more on what you get financially than the end results, it's not something that you're going to love. So no, it definitely should come with a lot of I honestly have friends who've seen how I operate, and I make it look very easy. And then when they listen in and they observe, they go, "Oh my God, I would never do this, because I would fire this client." Because I'll have people decide they want to, make an offer on something right now. I go ahead, I go through the process of putting a contract together, and it is very, very in depth to put a contract offer together. We'll put in a contract offer, their contract will be accepted, and they decide they no longer want to move forward. They want to do something else. They want to look at something else. They're not sure if they want to go through with this. And then you have to be able to reel them back in, center them, get them focused, especially when you are aware that the decision is not based on any tangible thing that they've discussed in their previous desire to purchase a property. You realize that what they're doing is more of cold foot. It's more of oh my God, am I making the right decision?
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, you have to balance not telling them, no, we've looked at several. You have to get back to a place where you're now asking them the questions that they need to ask themselves to calm themselves down, to come back to why they made the decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that you have to be able to master and to balance, because a lot of times it's helping them to get back to what they initially said they wanted to accomplish. And in doing so, it tends to calm their fears down. But for the average person, when you feel like you put so much work in, you'll start thinking about your time opposed to being concerned about what they could be possibly experiencing or feeling at the moment.
That'd be hard for anybody to do. Put
Yeah,
their feelings over
yeah,
somebody else, put someone else's feelings over theirs. Yeah,
absolutely.
that'd be hard for
And
anybody to do.
it's really cool that you're able to understand that about yourself, because a lot of people will get involved and they go, oh, I can do that, until they have to do that.
Yeah,
You
that's
know, and then they realize, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. I've spent so much time trying to help this individual, and now she's telling me she wants to put this off, you know. But at that moment, you have to respect and put yourself in their shoe. Do you want someone who's focused on a life-changing decision, more focused on what's good for the person who's helping you to shop, when they're not going to be living this lifetime decision? It's a surgeon. Think about a surgeon. If a surgeon says to you, at this point in your life, the decision you're going to make is going to alter you for the good or the bad. If the surgeon is more caught up on, either way you take it, I'm going to get this check, you cannot and will not want to go back to the surgeon, because if they're forcing you and not giving you options up to the pros and the cons and leaving you to make that decision, you realize in something like this that's going to affect you for the rest of your life, that person is not helping you to make a decision that's beneficial to you. They're making a decision beneficial to themselves.
I see. That was a good analogy.
Yeah, because that's how it feels to the average person who is purchasing a home. They're feeling as if they're getting married to someone. It definitely feels like giving birth to something. It is a huge responsibility emotionally and mentally. So if they feel like you're making a decision that's more based on what you desire from the situation, they won't even trust you when they come back to their right mind, because they can tell when your initial direction was based on what works more for you than for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We only got a few more questions, but one of them is just how much free time do you get? Like, how much time can you just per week? How much time can you just put back and be like, look, this is the time I'm going to take to do whatever I want to do, and interruptions aren't going to happen.
That's very hard, because when you're working with a client, especially if they're presently listing with you or on the market to purchase something, if something comes up that meets their criteria, we generally have a portal, we set them up, that has certain things they desire, like how many bedrooms, location, and so forth, and price point. I can't control if on Saturday morning I desire to say I'm going to go for a jog, and a property comes up that meets my client's criteria, and she reaches out and say, hey, I just received an email from the portal you set up for me, and I see a home that came on the market that I'm really interested in seeing and putting an offer in. Well, when you want what's best for your client, even though it may be inconvenient for you, then you have to get to a computer or wherever you need to pull this property up and see how soon you can request to have it shown to your client. So maybe one of those things that you can show it immediately. So while you're working with someone, again, you generally have to put their needs first, because if you don't, you definitely would risk and compromise, especially timelines. Sometimes when someone's shopping for a home, they have to have it done by a particular time. You may cause them to lose opportunities because you're not available. So you definitely have to be literally like an on-call surgeon. Some days you have nothing and you make your best of it. When you have planned vacations and so forth, you want to put things in place whether you have closings coming up, you put the necessary people in place so they have someone to reach out to. So you have to be very organized, very detail oriented, and eventually as you grow to get a great assistant so that if you're not physically able to do and meet certain things, that someone else will be able to.
Yeah, this sounds like so detailed. Like
Yeah,
so detailed. Like a handheld calendar full.
correct, correct, correct. You
Mm.
have to be very organized. And like I said, if you're not, your clients can feel it and they'll definitely see that. And for them, they expect you to be the expert, and
Mm-hmm.
you definitely want to present yourself knowledgeable about what they're looking for, and every time you show a property. So, in saying that, you want to be as organized as possible, because if you're telling someone about an automobile or you're showing them and you have no idea about it, how much can you help them when you've not taken the time to enlighten yourself about the area, get familiar with the home prior to showing them. So it definitely is I would definitely say a lifestyle more than a per se job,
Mm.
because I found myself on weekends, if I'm not working with a client, I'm driving to subdivisions, I'm going to new subdivisions, I'm looking up and being emailed new projects that are coming out so I can inform my clients. So I would look at it more of a lifestyle than I would as a job.
Mm-hmm. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, Miss Tanya, that was the last question. I appreciate you letting me interview you, and I appreciate you figuring it out because it was a little challenging.
No worries, my pleasure. And I'm glad that I was able to support you today. I had a scheduled day, but I knew this was essential to you, and you reached out early enough that I did not have a problem making time for that. I hope that the information that I shared with you was informative. I definitely know that for real estate, it's best when you get into it young. Um, if you're going to be or ever considering being a realtor, I would definitely encourage any young person or anyone who wants to be involved with real estate to consider purchasing a property first. One of the things that I've seen is when agents get in the market to do this and don't have an idea of what the buyer or seller is feeling. And you can't have true empathy if you've never really
Been through
gone
it.
through the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And because I have been through the process several times, I totally can have empathy to when my client is calling me 2 days before closing, asking the most random questions. And even though I've done it several times with several clients, I am no less patient. I am more empathetic as I go on, because I understand if someone knew what they needed to, they wouldn't ask you,
Mm-hmm.
right? If someone is displaying true worry and concern, it actually is a true worry and concern of theirs. So again, it has to be where you put your clients first, and where you've experienced it, where you understand that even though their concerns may not be necessary, you respect where you can understand them being concerned. And it's hard to do so. It's like having a conversation with someone about the college process and the stress of balancing your homework and your experience with trying to focus on whether, especially if you're in sports. If you're in sports, it's even harder to be a college student, because the demands that your coach has on you, and then your classwork, and then
Mm-hmm.
making social time. All that stuff can be so overwhelming. And if you say it to an average person who has not been to college, they think it's just all fun and games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you get a lot more time in your own, it feels like you have no time. And when I say that, it's
That
different when
makes
you're in
so
high
much
school,
sense.
where your teacher, to repeat that?
That makes so much sense to
Yes,
me.
yes. So I definitely say being in real estate, it's almost like joining college. You can choose to give attention to one thing more than another. But you and I both know everything is about balance,
Mm-hmm.
because regardless to you saying my coach is demanding me right now to be at practice, but you know you have a test coming up in 2 days that you need to study for. You have to balance all these things, and no one's going to get on top of your head if you don't. The end of it, just the result is either you successfully get through a semester or you don't. And one or other individual is not going to get into your face and tell you what you have to do. It's you deciding whether this is worth it to me at this point, or can I emotionally handle this. It's not like high school where your teacher's reminding you every day when something's due. It's all
Mm-hmm.
on you being responsible for balancing and managing. Okay, today I need to focus on calling my clients who I've sold a property to the last year just to check on them, because that's going to help me to have business for the future, right? Then you also have to balance the people who you're
Mm-hmm.
currently working with. And then you also have to balance the fun times, which is not really fun. It's in keeping you aware and enlightened about what's going on in real estate, which is making time for your colleagues, looking at new listings, getting out and getting in the field. So one thing does not take more presence than the other. It's all about balancing, and no one's going to make you do either. But if you don't do all of them and balance them properly, you're not going to be successful.
Hmm. All right. Well, I understand, and what you
Yeah,
told me today has been super informative. I
yeah,
really do like how you took the time to learn people's emotion. I've been trying to do that
yeah.
myself because it just seems like it helps a lot when we're just talking to people every single day. So I find that
Absolutely,
interesting.
absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things I would leave you with as a final nugget, um, I've learned years ago, if you take yourself out of the center, and when I say take yourself out the center, when you take yourself out of what you're feeling and truly hear, because most people do not intend to hurt others, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times we can't really hear other people because we're so caught up on how we're hurt. And if you take yourself out of center and don't make it about you, meaning most people are not thinking about you, then you can truly hear and see what their desires and their needs are, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if that's a practice that takes time, because I've had to learn that even when somebody's yelling and raising their voice at me, I have to say, this person, I have not done you anything. I don't know you. So clearly something's hurting me. And so then I'm no longer offended, and I can really look at you and say, well, how can I help you? Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's
Mm-hmm.
a practice where you have to learn to just take yourself out the center and not make everything about you. And for some people, that's really hard to do. But once you start doing that and being really confident in the fact that you know you've not hurt someone, and even if someone says you've hurt them and you know it's not intentional, then you should not be offended. Because if you're not offended, then you can truly hear people and meet their needs. So that's the one thing I definitely, and I applaud you for understanding early that it's important to hear and respect the needs of others. But once you stop making things about you by nature, we have to tell ourselves that, then you're capable of hearing and seeing the needs of someone else and actually walking away feeling really proud of yourself. Because in most cases, you bring change to them, because it's like someone being on fire and you're yelling at them because the blaze is touching you instead of helping them to put the fire out.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I do
So
know. I'm definitely soaking it in.
yeah, yeah. So that's what I would leave you with. Just consider when you talk to another person that they're on fire. And if you're so caught up on the blaze touching you, opposing to help them put their fire out, then you will be offended. No one walks away well. But if you're focused on putting their fire out, they will walk away feeling enlightened and someone helped them. And you will also feel proud of yourself because you didn't react to the blaze. You helped to put the fire out. And if someone's on fire, you clearly have to know they're going to be not in the best mood. They're burning up. You may be feeling the heat, but they're burning up. So that narrative was just something I always utilize sometime when I see and I feel like someone's out of control. I'm more caught up on trying to get you feel like you're in control and you're okay. And generally, when I do that, I walk away feeling more empowered, and they walk away feeling like they respect and they are more aware of what they just done. because you getting upset while someone's on fire, no one walks away feeling good.
Right.
You understand? So,
I completely
hopefully
understand.
this helped you a bit. I was trying to shift my brain because we're at the end of a quarter, going through a lot of business and tax things, and I definitely did want to make time just give you a little enlightenment. And thank you.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it, Miss Tanya. Hopefully I can talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
All
Me
right.
too.
See you.
Uh-huh.